Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you and welcome to this panel discussion. It's indeed a very important topic which is impacting organizations and what CFOs do in their organization. The topic for today's conversation is driving transformational growth, unlocking working capital efficiency. While the topic sounds very simple, it is complex because it's all about how do we create working capital solutions, especially real-time solutions, how do we release working capital, how do we have enough to grow the business and invest in the strategic opportunities which come across in the organizations. Today on the panel, we have the following speakers, and please welcome all of you. It's really indeed my honor to have you here with us today. Kaushik Mitra, VP Finance and CFO for India, PepsiCo. Arnab Roy, CFO, Maruti Suzuki Limited. Preeti Gupta Mohanty, CFO, Schneider Electric India. Kunal Malani, CFO, Madison Group. Kabir Ahmed Shakir, CFO, Tata Communication. And Ritesh Tiwari, CFO, HUL. So thank you for your time and appreciate your being here. Let me start the proceedings of the discussion on this roundtable. I'll start with Ritesh. Ritesh, what are the top strategic priorities you are currently focused on, and how is the CFO role evolving to drive innovation in these areas?
So, in my mind, the role of the CFO with all the amount of disruption happening is not changing. The way I see, there are four facets to a CFO job. Of course, it starts with performance. It goes on to stewardship. We have to lead disruption as Chief Financial Officer, and last but not least, lead organization and our people. But the way we get our job done is changing dramatically. And as you alluded, Neelam, to innovation, let me give one example each on each of the four elements. So as a CFO, my job is to drive performance in the organization, give very clear insight, use leverage data, put the hotspot where we need to focus as a company. And one of the innovation, for example, that we drive within finance is how do you drive the conversation on business in terms of looking into financial forecasts going forward. There was a time all of us would involve the entire organization and spend time and generate a financial forecast. It takes 3 to 4 weeks. Multiple people get involved in making that forecast. But now with the technology availability, machines help tremendously getting the job done. So at HUL, for example, 4 out of the 12 cycles in the year are completely machine driven. And it's just risk and opportunities once machine generates a forecast is what we need to look at. Because the forecasting efficiencies are getting very close to human forecasting and machine forecasting. So that's an innovation, the way we drive performance management very differently. But equally, there are non-tech solutions for driving what agenda we need to drive as CFO. Let me pick up the second example of stewardship. Driving stewardship will always remain, and risk management for the company will always remain a top priority for CFOs. And in this, tech will solve a large portion of that in terms of automating controls in risk environment. But the behaviors will still have to be ensured that they are right for times to come. The tonality from top, extremely important. The entire groundswell of importance across the organization, extremely important. So we drive an innovation called Control Week in the company, where for 1 week, of course, controls you do every day, but 1 week you make a big moment across the business, the importance of controls, the learning in controls area, getting best practices spoken, getting failure spoken at length so that people take learnings from that and people know it's okay if something goes wrong, but the more we share it very quickly, the quick solutions are there to fix it. So it's important to create the right cultural atmosphere and the behaviors right in the organization. That's an example of innovation in the area of controls. Equally, if I go to the area of disruption, business models are changing, and I do believe as CFOs, we have to think through how do we rewrite the business models going forward, and that becomes an extremely important topic, where everything starts digital first. And the way we create value and the time span that we do to create value is changing very differently. I do believe that as a CFO, I have 2 jobs. I have to deliver quarter of the year, and I also have to deliver quarter of the century. So the thinking of disruption business model to deliver quarter of the century is extremely important. And last but not least, leading for impact. As CFOs, I do believe that we play a large leadership role across functions in the organization. But equally for people, if our people don't keep up pace with the change which is happening in the country, in tech world, in ESG, they will be left behind and will be left behind. And hence a continuous focus on upgrading, upskilling content of each of the team members that we have, that becomes in my mind a very large responsibility So that's how I will summarize. The jobs are very similar: performance, stewardship, disruption, and people management, but done very differently in today's atmosphere.
Thank you. And Arnab, what is your experience and what are the top strategic priorities you are currently focused on?
I think very similar to what Ritesh said. I think the core part of the CFO job is the same. I think stewardship is one key part of it. The only thing tech is enabling is it's becoming more and more automated. I'll start with an example. I think the use of AI in internal audit these days is becoming very, very productive. So you can suddenly translate a sample into a population if you are able to plan it correctly. So that's one example of how tech is enabling controls. But there are several examples of how tech is impacting the controllership part. The tax tech in India itself is becoming very evolved, and how CFOs they align themselves to be able to live to the digitization level in which our government is today, I think is going to be a challenging part of the CFO role. And a lot of integration is happening and a lot of upskilling is needed in that area. So that's on the controllership aspect. On the business partnering side, with more and more data, with more and more integration, I think a lot of things where we finished our job earlier, now that becomes the starting point. And then you go deeper and beyond. And I think tech is enabling us to go there. I think transformation is now a key part of every CFO role. And that's playing a key part in every CFO journey, irrespective of the organization the person is in. So if you look at it, I mean, there is a 360-degree view of it which is coming on the CFO role. The strategic side is becoming more and more deeper. Operational side is getting more and more automated. And this is how the balance is flourishing in the CFO role.
Thank you. And I think we are inverting. The operations has become the least important and transformation has become the largest priority for most organizations and CFOs. Kaushik, coming to you. Given the current market landscape, what real-time challenges are impacting your strategic priorities and how do you navigate them to maintain resilience?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think this applies to all of us in the CFO fraternity. Look, I'll talk about two things. Firstly, before coming to challenges, I think India and I'm part of PepsiCo, which is a global multinational company, looking at geopolitically what's happening. India is now a focus market. So, massive opportunity, both in terms of growth, profitability, stakeholder returns. And I say stakeholder returns because earlier the CFO job was more about value creation for shareholders, but now it's about stakeholders. It's a trifecta of top line, bottom line, and creating a better world than we are today. PepsiCo is all about that. And in that context, I think from looking at what the CFOs really need to do is we have to move from 2-3 movements. One is from rigid models to flexible models. And what I mean by that is, and we talked about this, which is there is no A plan. We all live and die, and I've been 23 years at PepsiCo, we all live and die by the plan. But the plan is out of the window, once the year starts. So for us, how do you stay agile and nimble to help them navigate the organization through all the changes that come at you? And that is one, I would say, from a CFO lens, is a challenge that we and an opportunity that we have to really address. And digitization is helping us do that. We are moving from preparing the data to analyzing the data much more, and now moving to stochastic forecasting tools to, as I think Ritesh was saying, is real-time plans coming out of the system, but what do you make of those plans, right? So, coming back to the industry challenges, I think the world around us is changing. Consumers are changing. The marketplace is changing. Clearly, there is a shift to, and particularly in India, in terms of value. Consumers are looking for more for less. So the challenge back in terms of organizations are, how do we address that value-conscious consumer while remaining nimble and making your cost fine deliver that value, right? So there is no trade-off. So that's one part in terms of the conundrum of value versus, let's say, the business model that we always go through. The second part is transformation, and I think Arnab talked about that. I think everything is changing. So while we are delivering, as Ritesh said, the quarter and the next quarter and the longer term, but things are changing around us. So how do we create an organization within the organization? Or let's say short term versus longer term, creating mind space to think about what's happening outside, how do we adapt. So let's say, for example, we have a stage gate meeting where we're talking about innovations for the next quarter. How do we now move that conversation out to the 6th quarter, 7th quarter, 8th quarter, right? And anticipate what is going to happen in terms of consumer space and demand space, right? Similarly, on the customer evolution, how do we make our GTM ready and future ready for what's coming tomorrow? So I think the challenges are also opportunities if you look at it. Partly it is to do with moving to that here and now data for decision making, and CFOs need to spend and finance organizations need to spend more time not on preparing the data. Traditionally we have done that, more about what do you make of the data, what do they tell us, what are the insights, and therefore what do we need to do. And the second part of it is how do you create that transformation cell within your organization, which along with perform is driving that change which is needed for the organization and the function to be future ready. I think these are a couple of challenges that I want to lead out.
Thank you. It is more complex than just thinking of a CFO's role in the traditional ways. Kabir, now I come to you and ask you a question. How do you see your role as a CFO in unlocking new opportunities and fostering innovation, particularly through digital transformation, AI, and other modern investments?
I've been a very, very big evangelist of digital. I think the word digital transformation has been in the lexicon for the last decade or so, and when the World Economic Forum termed the period that we currently live in as Industry 4.0, the digital revolution. Maybe Industry 5.0 is coming, which is the AI revolution, soon. I think all of us as CFOs need to recognize this as real. Unfortunately, some of them, when I speak to say, I'm in a brick and mortar business, so do I really need to worry about digital? You do. Reason being that we are all part of an ecosystem. We have consumers and they go digital. We have employees, and if you do not provide a good employee experience, they do not want to come to work for you. You have vendors who have their own systems, and they would like to, sometimes if your pace is slower, they would like to move ahead. You have regulators, as Arnab was also saying, who are evolving. So you are sitting not alone in this ecosystem. So automatically digital investments need to come into the lexicon straight away. Traditional thought processes on ROI really need to be questioned. We are quite used to saying, okay, this is my IRR threshold, and any investment beyond this threshold, is what I would approve. Otherwise, I would challenge and ask questions. If you actually look at it this year, the top 4 to 5 tech companies are going to spend something like about $150 billion on things. All of their ROCEs are going to come down. So if you take AI, ChatGPT, and all the investments in OpenAI or any of the technologies that are being made today, none of them are going to give you results or returns right now because we don't know how to quantify it. It's not that it doesn't make sense, but you have to take that leap of faith and move on and then create those opportunities in the organization. So I'm sitting with multiple proposals on AI where the return is not apparent or clear, but we know it is going to make sense. And I think as CFOs, we are quite used to saying no. I think we need to have the courage to say yes. And yes, in opportunities like this. And one final thought, I would actually leave with is, so since the topic on working capital sits in, as Ritesh talked about, we drive performance. And within performance, quite often we are branded or labeled that we look at the cost side, and we are more focused on the bottom line as finance folks. I'm extremely passionate about driving the top line. If you drive the top line, automatically operating leverage kicks in and all your ratios start getting better, and you have enough fuel to run the organization and fund innovation, and so on and so forth. So I keep telling my folks, I think we should drive growth. And one of them came to me and said, how do I drive growth as a finance person? And I'll give you a real example. 18 months ago, we did an acquisition. It cost us $60 million, and the entire acquisition was funded by a bank, and that bank was called MWC, Movement in Working Capital. So we just we just did all that we could release the trapped cash from unemerging processes and use that cash to go and acquire the new. And after we did that, I stood in my town hall and told my team, this is how you drive progress finance. That if we can just look at every element in our P&L and balance sheet and make them sweat harder, towards, and then you start unlocking all opportunities, both organic as well as inorganic.
This is fantastic. I've not heard about this MWC before. So we learned something new. Thank you for sharing that story with us. Preeti, I'm going to come to you now and ask you, how can enhancing working capital efficiency fuel long-term value creation and support strategic expansion in your business? I know Kabir just told about MWC, but what are your thoughts? And Kunal, I'm coming next to you with the same question.
I'll just build on what Kabir said. In our current landscape, there is ample and more focus on both top line and bottom line. When we say top line, I see more and more business leaders and commercial leaders. The focus is on top line and bottom line in all the boardroom discussions. However, as our job as a CFO, and I would say particularly finance team, is to also bring free cash flow into picture in all those decisions. Right? I think to assess the impact of cash flow on every major decisions that are being taken, I think if that mindset be done, automatically I see that optimization into working capital will start kicking in. Having said that, I think it's our job as CFOs to build the capabilities and putting a process in place, mechanism in place wherein the free cash flow forecasting and reviews and the whole mechanism around it is seamless and probably digitized, right? So I think the moment we close the P&Ls, there is a free cash flow impact of the last month also available as to what you did in your investing activities, how much advances were given. While those don't appear on the P&L, but free cash flow gives you entire the value chain of your cash. And my mindset, which I drive with in all my discussions with commercial team, is that cash is the king. King as in the sales is not made until the cash is in the bank, right? So don't be happy with your top line. It's the DSOs which you need to look at by the end of the day. Having said that, on long-term value creation, I see long-term value creation as an intersection where it's not just the numbers part of working capital, it's also taking everyone involved in the process along. And I think that is something that we do beautifully at Schneider Electric, or we are in the process of doing it. And just to give an example, for instance, our vendors and our channel partners, our customers, right? We work with them actively. We have programs like both supply chain financing for our vendors and channel financing for our customers, right? Where we work with a number of banks, and with our collective might and volumes, we have got very effective interest rates where our vendors and our customers can avail those credit facilities. These are lean, very simply, they can be onboarded into a program because it goes same for everyone with the value of relationship they hold with Schneider. And having said that, we also work with our partners that while the outcome is inventory optimization, but we work with them on programs like OptiFlow, where you can bring their capacity expansion plans, their new plant setups closer to our manufacturing setups. In the process, the whole lead time, inventory, lot sizes, and the just-in-time inventory is possible. At the same time, I think it also adds a lot of value to the supplier, because we are with them, collaborating with them in that entire process. Right? So it's like a hole in the wall where you win, I win, and in the process, I think the entire value chain, there is a creation of value for everyone. So that's the process we believe in. Having said that, the other initiative on the inventory side I would like to touch upon is call it inventory rebalancing, wherein we use certain cloud-based softwares, for instance Move, etc., where if you can flag the unhealthy levels of inventory, like at any touch point across the globe. And if there is a need for that inventory, I think it can be rebalanced and shipped at a short notice. So it is both, I think it leads to sustainability, avoiding wastages. At the same time, it is also inventory optimization, I would say, pan-world, not just pan-India. So there are enough and more digital tools, collaborative programs, I think the finance team can work on to both optimize working capital, generate cash, and in the process, I would say, create value for not just our stakeholders, for our partners, for our customers, for our vendors, everyone.
Thank you. That's really great answer you've given us there. Kunal, I wanted to ask you the same question. How can enhancing working capital efficiency fuel long-term value creation, especially in your industry?
Motherson, as you know, is in manufacturing and powerhouse. Much in automotive is what people know about, but not many people know about a non-automotive part of that. So, just from a brick and mortar perspective, the business is very, very ROC focused. I know Kabir did talk about ROC as a by the way metric. For us, it is actually the most critical metric, and that is where working capital feeds in. If I think about capital structure in an organization, and ours is a fairly large one now at 17 billion across the globe, in 46 odd countries. So, variety of different capital structures and constructs need to come across these countries. So, completely different domain set in that regard. But in each of them, from an ethos perspective, working capital becomes a focal point of delivering value. And it again comes back to releasing of cash. It comes back to be able to deliver the returns on an ROC. Many companies are focused on talking about margins. We focus on ROC, which in some way becomes a proxy for cash. And working capital effectively, if enhanced, actually blocks your cash, and hence you need to do everything to try and liquidate as much of it as possible. Now, surprisingly, we've done 45 acquisitions, and a lot of them, MWC is a very active space. In fact, there are some acquisitions where whatever money that we have paid has actually not come from our kitty at all. It's just come from working capital optimization of the target. So that is how poorly actually working capital is seen in many parts of the world. So it's not unique to India, but I think across the globe, this is a phenomenon which is often misunderstood and considered as a must-have in the business. People don't focus so much about it. But I think all the team spoke about some of the pieces, like Preeti was talking about some of the operating aspects that have to be played in order to optimize it. These are all strategies that have to get adopted, and different strategies come from different parts of the world. The good part for us at least is we leverage a lot of it that's happening across the globe, and try to cross penetrate some of these ideas across the globe. We have a program called 233, which is a 33% improvement in operating matrices, which includes working capital into it every year. Right now, in reality, no one can think about it doing 33% improvement, but it's a mindset piece that is embedded to say, hey, please think about a dimensional change and not baby steps. And the fact is that there are 400 units that we are running, even if a few people are able to figure some dimensional change, we can cross-populate that across 400 different units. So that's how we improve on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you. In fact, it's very interesting to see 45 acquisitions and then putting all the acquisitions together and then merging them into the existing business itself is a transformation which is a very difficult journey to do. And I move to Arnab again, and Arnab, I have a question to ask you. How do you ensure that treasury surplus is optimally managed to maximize returns?
Well, in our context, our treasury size is pretty big. So we manage a mutual fund portfolio which is quite sizable. So I think we have to be agile into the market. We need to be aware of the products. I think the first dimension we keep in mind is that we are reasonable about risk, because that's our primary business, is to make cars. So this is something which is coincidental to the primary business. So risk is the first dimension. So we don't go beyond anything which is AAA or a very high AA, mostly AAA. So that's the first thing. And then within that framework, I mean, what is available in the market, what do you choose, and how do you dimensionalize it? I mean, it's almost a daily tracking of performance. You have to be aware of all kind of national and international uses and the various lead indicators which can impact the lag indicator of the performance. So it's a process which needs almost a daily engagement, a daily agility. As a CFO, a daily briefing for me to see how the things are moving and then take a calibrated position going in. But obviously the dimension remains that risk is the fundamental part of the dimension.
Yeah, in fact, in some of the organizations, I've seen treasuries measured on returns on the free cash in the company of free cash. And one of the areas they've looked at is paying the MSMEs on time and or paying the suppliers and taking a discount, which perhaps sometimes gives better returns. I can see Kunal smiling because I'm sure he's doing that too as part of treasury. You want to comment on it, Kunal?
That's exactly right. I mean, as part of supply chain finance, I think it is one of the mechanics of doing exactly what you're saying. Equally true, I'm sure, for him as a customer of ours. They do a fair amount as well. So.
We should have had them sit across the room that next to each other. So that was an interesting side. Now, I'm going to switch gears and talk about sustainability. And Ritesh, I'm going to start with you, and then I'm going to come to Kaushik, and of course anyone would, Preeti or anyone who would like to add on sustainability. Ritesh, what does sustainability mean for your organization, and how do you incentivize partners to align with your sustainability goals?
The core belief that we have at HU is that a business which is sustainable ends up driving superior business performance. And because that is so deep-rooted belief that we have, so we don't believe that business today has to operate at a sweet spot of sustainability. We believe it has to operate at the same spot where we can find sustainability. And because of that belief, we drive this across the organization for multiple years. And we are very clear that as we do our own ESG strategy, what are the key risk areas we have to work on? You need water to bathe and hence use our soap. You need water to cook food and hence use our product of food. You need water to wash clothes and hence you need our detergent powder, require water and hence now. So water is integral. So just for example that we have now driven 3 trillion litres of water potential in the last more than a decade. It's equal to 2 years of drinking water in every package. So we ensure that we choose items of high impact and ensure that we end up working multi-year on those priorities. Because many areas in ESG you cannot make an impact in a short period of time. So you have to pick up priorities which are multi-year and then ensure that you keep allocating resources over years to make a cumulative large impact. Second, we have a firm belief that to create sustainability, we have to drive innovation. And you cannot do that job alone as innovation. You have to collaborate across the ecosystem. Collaborate to compound is the belief that we have to drive ESG. So the more partners we're able to bring together, be it opening a Suvidha Center, which is a sanitation center across Mumbai city with HSBC, or for that matter, working on carbon capture to make soda ash, which goes into making a laundry detergent with a supplier partner. There are multiples. Of the matter, working with another partner where we set up a solar farm investment, which helps us move our scope to needle in a material way. In each of these areas is one common theme: collaborate to compound, and that belief is what we have ensured that we end up putting it. And last but not least, I do believe that as a CFO, it's my job to create a winning business case for sustainability, which means any large financial decision that we're doing, all the implications that we have on sustainability are fully factored in. The cost of sustainability is fully factored in, and then the business case is a winning business case. So that's the approach that we have at Hindustan and Unilever, to fully integrate sustainability into the business model of the organization.
So Kaushik, I'll turn to you with the same question. What does sustainability mean for your organization, and how do you incentivize partners to align to your sustainability goals?
Yeah, I'll pick up from what Ritesh was saying. I mean, really, sustainability, as I was saying, now it's the stakeholder validation is all about not only top line and bottom line, but really work which is future-proof and better. And PepsiCo therefore has put what we call Pep Positive, which is the entire focus on creating a better world, right at the center of strategy. And there are 2-3 aspects of it. I'm not going to bring the details, but one part I think Ritesh talked about it. It is how do we fund for it? And I think that's very, very important from a CFO fraternity. And gone are the days where we used to think, how do I now, this is the cost of the P&L, to really aggressively increasing the investments behind Web Positive and funding for it, finding ways to fund for it through productivity, through what we call net revenue realization. So clearly the focus has shifted. It's no longer a cost, but it's part of strategy, and you're putting it right at the center and right in front. I would say it's license to do business. And if you think about India, I'll touch upon a couple of aspects from a PepsiCo point. We are focused on, firstly, that they talked about is water. We are very, very focused on making sure that we are water neutral. Whatever we draw, we put back more than what we draw. That's a very, very important part of our strategy. We've been doing that for a long time. Packaging is another area. We move to 100% ESR, which we're already compliant with. That's a focus going forward. Sustainable agro. We work with a lot of farmers in India. We have a very large potato business. We work with a very large set of farmers in different parts of the country. How do we help them with sustainable farming, which is good for the environment? And that needs, coming back to that, needs investment. Coming back to products, right? I mean, clearly there is a consumer who's wanting products which are beneficial. So we are focused on creating product solutions, whether it is sodium reduction or it is a big part of our beverage strategy. It's all about how do we move the portfolio from 100% sugar products to products which are zero cal, mid cal, and the future strategy is all about that. So if I look at a 360 view of environment, partners, the ingredients that we use, we are putting a lot of focus behind the positive. We are investing heavily behind it. As a CFO, I am pushing hard to actually even push the targets beyond what we need to do and find the money for it. So this is clearly licensed to operate for us and front and center for PepsiCo.
Preeti, Schneider is known for its ESG initiatives. Would you like to comment?
Absolutely. Sustainability is the DNA of Schneider, if I may say so. And I think one of the things which I take pride in is that the very purpose of company is how we empower people to make most of their energy and resources and bring sustainability to all. So I think that's the starting guideline for Schneider as a company. And on that parameter, while enough and more has been elaborated by my fellow speakers here, but Schneider is working on the energy part, right? How do we make and introduce innovations which are more energy efficient? How do we enable the existing equipments to make them more energy efficient, consume less of energy, thereby conserving and in fact adding to the energy resources of the world where there's already a crisis. Having said that, there's enough and more being done on providing digital tools and softwares where the energy efficiency of your existing equipments, your buildings can be enhanced by XX%. So that is something I think we are working, our whole innovation program is driven towards how we make the world more energy efficient and thereby adding to the sustainability goals. So I think we are one of the first company who have taken that by 2030 we'll make an entire supply chain net zero ready. And by 2050 our entire value chain at Schneider has to be net zero. Right? Having said that, currently what we are also working on actively from partners side is how we bring our partners on board the sustainability mandate. And on that I think we are collaborating with them. We are providing them the digital tools to make them energy efficient in the process. And we also walk the talk. Right? Our tools are the ones which are also implemented in all our manufacturing facilities and the factories across Schneider. In fact, after HUL, I think the second sustainability lighthouse is Schneider Hyderabad factory. Not to forget that. And yes, very proud to say, I think very recently Schneider was awarded by Times magazine world's most sustainable company. So I think that says a lot about each one of us take a lot of pride in what we do. As finance, as CFO, as Ritesh mentioned, I think my role is to bring that aspect, imbibe them in all the finance decisions our organizations.
Thank you. That's very useful. Kabir, I want to talk to you on this issue. They all talk about these new initiatives, ESG initiatives, all of them investment. And then when you look at some of these, how do you free up capital for driving innovation? Most organizations, they have capital deployed in getting the business going, running the business. Working capital is completely gone into it, and the capital otherwise also is deployed in just running the business. But at the other hand, you have innovation to be done. On the other hand, you have ESG initiatives to be funded. So how do you free up working capital? How do you think about it?
Well, the core job of a CFO, in fact, is exactly that. I walk around telling people, get me the ideas, to find the money is my job. And when you drive performance, you quite often realizes that there are projects which give you payback under a year. It's self-funded, in itself. Then you go into picking on ideas that people talked about. We are a B2B company, so free cash flow is not something that I look at an aggregate on a monthly or a quarterly basis. I look at free cash flow on a deal by deal basis. So we don't any longer look at deal profit, but I look at deal cash flow. And when I look at deal cash flow, I look at year one cash flow. So when you get that focus, at a year one, cash flow level, then what you're basically doing is you're saying that I will, generate enough money to fund, myself. So the only way, in fact, all of us, probably did not speak, very openly, but the undertone was we all want to drive growth.
Yes.
And the growth can only be driven by investment, and investment has to precede growth. It cannot be, after at all. So which means that you need to take that call of funding, and therefore you will scrape the barrel. And this is something which I say again and again. We say cash is king and queen. There are many people in the company who review sales. There are many people in the company who review profit. There is only finance who looks at cash. And therefore, if you have the focus on cash, then you clearly drive activity. I'll give you an example of Tata. We've been stuck in this phase, which I call the satisfactory underperformance phase for a decade and a half. Single-digit growth, low to mid-single-digit growth, low profitability, single-digit growth, and negative PAT, negative net worth for companies. 4 or 5 years ago, we had the new CEO joining 5 years ago. I joined 4 years ago. In the COVID period, we had flat top. Although our aim was that we wanted to get double-digit growth and we wanted to double our business, which is where we are now. But in the first 3 years of COVID, we were absolutely flat. Despite the flat top line, our profitability went from 14% to north of 25%. Our ROCE went from 8.6 to 29%, and I have stuck my neck out and said, I'm going to operate greater than 25% of ROCE. Quarter of the century, government of Ritesh, we had the highest ever PAT declared. We are now into positive net worth and positive PAT for the last 10 quarters. All of this just from releasing cash. Just from releasing cash. So you go very, very clinical about how you want to manage your working capital, how you want to manage your capital efficiency, fixed assets, and capital decisions, have a framework for it. Not everything is democratic. Maintenance capex has a very ruthless rule of 2% of them. You can't cross that. Strategic capex, endless limit. Show me the strategic value of it. And finally, let's not forget tax. We used to have effective tax rate which used to be around 28-29%. For about 12 quarters, it's now under 20%. So again, it is finance who can actually look at how do I structure a contract in such a way that the effective tax rate is managed and optimized well. And especially if you're a global company, I think you have all the avenues to be able to play with that. So if you look at the underlying, so in summary, all of these conversations put together, our EBITDA to cash conversion used to be around 22% 4 years ago. It's now north of 60%. that numbers in itself tells you as to how you can drive growth by just focusing on it.
Thank you for those comments, and I really appreciate all of you taking time and being here. In sum up, I would say, if we have to grow our business, transform our growth, we have to unlock working capital. There's technology to be used, there are priorities to be driven, and there is enough the finance community is doing to ensure that we are working positively in unlocking working capital. At the same time, driving investments. Thank you. It's been a great conversation. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.